I've got some advanced tricks. I don't know how advanced they are, but they're things that you wouldn't know unless you shoulder surf a lot. Um, so my biggest tip is you can't break things. Like don't worry about like overloading the cluster or like destroying your files. I want you to be brave and I want you to be enabled to break things. Like if you destroy a file, it's not a big deal. If it was there yesterday, here's a big tip. You can cd dot snapshot and it'll give you a whole directory listing of file states for the last week. You can retrieve a file from in its state as it was on any day in the last week. So, don't be afraid to try things. You can always roll back to your files the day before. And, it's like I said, like the scheduler is there to protect you from yourself and from other users. So like if somebody has a really bad job, it's not going to affect your files. It's not going to it's not going to ruin your code. They're in their own little playground and so are you. So feel enabled to try things out and you're not going to break it. And so I've got some terminal tricks. I think these are really handy if you're spending a lot of time running jobs. I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you do up and down arrow, I was using them earlier. So if you do the up arrow at the command line, you will get the command line history. So if you don't have to type all of this over again, you can just hit the up arrow until you get the command you want, and you can just hit enter and it'll run it. So up and down is like amazing. And then another big one is just like the tab completion of the command line. So if I wanted to cd into some project, I don't have to type some underscore project. I can just type cd space and just enough letters to be unique, and then I can hit tab and it'll complete that whole file name for me, and I can hit enter. So I've just become like a command line maven here. I'm just like, I can move around a lot faster. I can hit up arrows to my old commands. I can hit tab to complete file names. I can also use tab to complete common terminal utility command line options. So if I do ls space dash tab, I get all these options. I can say like, oh, look at all the options I can use for ls. So that's really handy. Let's see what else. So if you have a big command line, if you don't want to search, another tip is you're going up through and you remember that command, it was back there a while ago, you can just hit Control R and start typing it, and it will start completing on the ones that are in your history. And when you see the one that you like, you can start editing it with the arrows, or hit return if you want to run it again. So that's another good tip. It's up, down, tab, Control R. There's also command line editing. So like if you want to go to the beginning of your command, let's see. So I do up. I don't want to CD, I just want ls. I can hit Control A to go to the beginning of the command line, Control E to go to the end. So I'm going to go to the Control A, then arrow, delete ls. So it's a good way to like move around, especially if you're using big commands or you're running a script that has a million different parameters. You can jump around that way. So these are pretty handy ways to speed up and make working at the command line less painful and less error prone, because you just have to type it once or it auto completes itself. You don't have to have any typos. Another tip I have is that if you're working with your files all through the file share, like the Finder or Explorer, by browsing to it on your computer, there's a better way that I like to use, and it's the rsync command line utility. And this will allow you to copy. I like to use rsync instead of copy. If I have files locally, say like I have a directory called files on my laptop, I can go open up my terminal or my MobiX terminal, and I can type rsync. AVP is archive, verbose, partial. It will give you a list of status and some, and I can copy all the files to HPCC to my home directory. So this is and then if I make one small change, I can copy that. It won't copy every single file again. It will only copy the file that's changed. So this is a really good way of syncing files and directories from one computer to another. I don't know. Let's see. So let's see. I'm trying to figure out, like, if I open, so I'll just exit out of, I'll exit out of HPCC here. And I think I have, let's see, I don't know. Let's see. I think I have a giant sample library that I just bought in my downloads. Yeah. So if I wanted to sync like this giant directory of techno sound samples here that I happen to have on my laptop, I can do rsync adp un tab d tab, and I'm going to take off that last slash. This is important with rsync. The slash on the end of the file name is important on a directory with rsync. If I leave the slash on, it's going to copy all the files in that directory. So this is the source, and then I want to put the destination. If the source has a slash, it will copy all the files in that directory to my destination. But I actually wanted to keep them, and I want to keep the directory. I want to copy the whole directory, including the directory itself, not just files in it. So I take out that last slash, and I say, add HPCC Norton.eu :tilde. And I'm also going to put it in my home directory, and I'm also going to put it in downloads there. Oh, D for downloads. And I put a slash there because I wanted to go into that directory. I don't want it to sync the sounds directory to my downloads. I wanted to put the sounds. I hope this is a little confusing. I apologize. Just so you know, the slash is important. And the worst case is you'll have an extra directory. So. And then that will start syncing after I supply my password. Type my password. Yep. So it shows you how fast they're going and then with the percentages. So it'll keep going and going and going. And if it gets cut off or I want to run it again, it'll pick up where it left off. So there you go. I highly recommend using rsync for copying files at the command line. Even between directories on HPCC, you can do that. Let's see. So if I want to create a complete copy of my some projects directory, I can do rsync adp some projects. And I'm going to leave the slash on this time. And I'm going to I don't want to call the new one some project, I don't know, test. It's going to copy every single file in there. So some project test. And you see all the directories are there the same way they were.
While that was not too impactful, if you're doing that with data and stuff like that, please don't do it on the login node.
Yeah.
Do a queue login first.
So yeah, rsync is like my favorite command ever. I move a lot of files and data around. So let's see. So I wanted to point out one little tip here is if you're browsing in the Finder on Windows, you'll automatically see hidden dot files in your home directory, but you don't in the Finder on Mac. So the thing to do there is Command Shift period dot to see the dot files. So now I can see all the hidden files that are in my directory. That's a random tip there because I wanted to get to the bash RC, which is important. It sets up your bash, your shell environment on HPCC. This file right here. If I were to open that in code, I have a gigantic bash RC. Please ignore. But what you can do in here is you can make these aliases of commands you use pretty frequently, and I'm about to get to that. So anyway, next slide. So some job options. If you want to look at, if you've ran a bunch of jobs and you come back the next day, a good way to look at what jobs and how they ran is with queue account. And you can say like D1 or D2, say for the last day. and J for output, and you can type that to less. And this will show you the job accounting information, the output, the error state, how much memory it used for the last day. And just for good measure, I'm going to put in the owner as me. Oh, bug. Owner bug. So this is saying for the last one day, owned by bug, show me job info, show me the accounting info, and put it in the last pager. And this is a little slow because we got a lot of jobs. But this will go through all the job accounting that's on HPCC, and it will then show me just my jobs for the last day by job name. And I have some automated jobs, but you can still see them here. So like this is just a job name, simple.sh, the job number, what directory it was in, where it ran, the command line, and things like how much memory did it use. So this is if you're trying to figure out how much memory to use in your job request, your key sub commands, this is a good place to look. And you also want to look at things like, you know, how long did it run? Look at the wall clock, 20 seconds. Let's see. Or you can see the start and end time. Or if you want to see the exit status, this is a big one. Exit status 0 means no error. Anything other than 0 means there was some kind of error with your code. And this is a good place to look if you're having trouble, if you want to check the status of your jobs. And so if you see that your job is using a little bit of memory, the next time you submit it, use the LMM memfree option and set it to something just over that amount of memory. And that'll make your jobs run faster because they use less resources. It has to wait for less space on the cluster to run. Or if you see that it got an error and it died out at 5 gigs our default, you might want to try 10, 12, 16 gigs and see how that works. So this is pretty much step one for figuring out memory on the cluster. I just wanted to reiterate this. So let's say you submit a job and you don't want to keep coming back and checking it and QStat and QStat and QStat. You could submit your job, add the ME option. M is mail, E is for end of job, capital M is where to send your email address, and then your job script, the rest of your Q sub. So now this is nice. I submit a job and then I'm going to get an email when the job is done, and it's going to tell me how it ran. So that's awesome. Let's see. So another tip is a whole job. If you have like a pipeline, or if you have different steps in your data massaging, or like say like you have one job that's gonna take all your data in and put it in the right format, and then you have another job that's gonna look for this certain whatever you're looking for, or just the different stages. If one can't be ran before the other runs, you don't have to wait and wait and wait and wait. You can actually submit the first job and then submit the second job and have it hold itself until the first job is done. And that option is -hold_JID, job ID. So if you Q sub -N first job, and then you want to Q sub your second job and have it hold, then you do hold JID is first job. And that can be the job number or the job name. So that's a big tip. I think that's good for, I want you guys to be more efficient. I don't want you to have to keep checking things, keep watching things. I want you to go off and live the rest of your life while this stuff is running in the background on the server. And you get an email when it's done. So you can come back when it's done. So here's a nice little tip. We're going to combine the email on end of job with the hold ID. I like to put this in my bash RC. That's why I was showing you how to get to it. You can copy and paste this command here. Oh, yeah, I can't relay that. It's alias job mail. And so the command will then be job mail and the job name or the job number. And that will go into the queue as a hold job. And when the job that it finishes, the one that I just specified with job mail, I'll get a text to my phone. I'll get a text on it'll hit me on the hip and will say job done, way to go. And so if you have, here are some email to text email addresses. If you have say like I have a Verizon phone. So if I send to my phone number, which let's say it's 215-123-4567 at VZText, that email will be a text to my phone. So my phone will buzz, it'll beep at me, and I'll know that my job is done. So this is a fun little tip here. That you can get a text message, you can get a notification on your phone when your jobs are done. And don't do this. Do not do this Q-sub-M on an array job, because you will get an email on each task completion. Not so good. If you have 10,000 tasks, you will get 10,000 texts on your phone or your email address. That's not fun. I've done it before. So what you want to do is use this alias job mail that you put this in your bash RC, and you edit it for your phone number and your provider's gateway address. And you will then only get one email from this job mail job once all the tasks in the other job are complete. So that's my big tip there. Are there any questions about that? That can be a little confusing, but I think it's putting an alias bash RC, putting your phone number in, and making sure it has the right. You can, if you want to test this, you can just email yourself at your phone number at TMO or at ATT, and you'll see that it comes through on your phone. So just setting that here is what you want to do. So if I had did in the previous slide, Q sub my first job, and I did a Q sub hold ID first job, second job, I want to put a job mail on the second job. So what I'm going to do is once I have my alias in my bash RC and I log in, I can do job mail space second underscore job. And when second underscore job is done, my phone beeps at me. So that's a little work-life balance tip there. Maybe not if it's interrupting you. Anyway, let's see, I'll move on then. Storage. So we're getting down to it. I only have like 10 more minutes. Some quick tips on storage. You may have a home directory quota. Your project may have a dedicated directory and may have a dedicated volume. If you want to see how much space you have in your quota, use the quota command. Just go, when you log in, type quota, and it'll show you how much space you're using and on what volumes you have files. So I happen to have a 500 gigabyte quota, and I'm using 45% of that. If I was in another group, like let's say a queue, I can type quota QMAC, and I can see that in that project or in that user space, say like Q's the faculty member, I can see that we're only using 4% of our quota, so we're really good on space. If my faculty member has a dedicated volume, I can use the df command. So you can see on HPCC, there's a lot of different volumes. Let's say we're working with Nancy. If we do a df-h, not NZH, which is the directory, that's a good way to see the instantaneously how much space there is. 38% of the space is being used. Great, we've got lots of room to work with. If we're getting up to 80, 90%, we either need to do some cleanup or we need to ask for more space.
The dot is good for that too. If you're not sure where it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yep, or you can do the PWD and see where you are. You can do reports. This is a little one-liner here. Click on it. With QRSH find, we're munging together a bunch of commands and piping our output to each other. So if I were to do, let's see, highlight this. Yes. If I were to run this command, on HPCC in my project directory, on my sum project directory, it's going to be very small. So I'm in the queue, I'm running the command find maxdef mindef1. It will just be in the current directory. And it's going to use the du command, which will descend and count the size of the files, and then it will sort them by numeric size in reverse order. Oh, did I typo?
Doesn't like those curly quotes.
Yeah, that's weird quotes. You just want regular quotes. So you see my big directory is the virtual environment, and it's only using like 26, what is that, bytes, megs?
Megs.
Yeah, I think, yeah, megs. Yep, -m. Okay. And if you get it, if you're running out of space and you're working with a lot of text files, you're going to want to use some zip. And if you're done with the project, zip it up because that'll save you lots of space. If you're working with Python or whatever language you're working in, try to work with the functions that work with compressed files on the file system. Like Python has the zlib or the zip file modules, so you don't even have to unzip a zip file. And if you're using it read-only, you can even append a zip file sometimes with this. So you could leave your data files zipped, and you don't have to unzip them and use all your storage. You can work with the zip file directly. That's a big tip there. And we're getting the last few minutes here. I wanted to mention as one of the last big tips is that we really, along with the rsync command, the rclone command is also a really powerful tool for data movement. Rclone is like rsync, but it's for your cloud providers. Rclone will allow you to sync data from Dropbox, Box, Amazon S3, and about a dozen other services I've never even heard of. So there's a lot in here. So I was just going to show you quickly how to configure this if you wanted to configure this, because it's a little tricky. And you can read the documentation and it's step-by-step on our website. But the long and short of it is that you need to go to, you have to log into, oops, I just typed that. You have to log into HPCC remote desktop first, which is hpcc-desktop.wharton.upenn.edu. And you log in here with your Wharton credentials. If you haven't done this before, it's a nice way to do some quick debug or pull up the actual GUI for the program you're using. I do not recommend using this environment to do your normal job runs. If this is just for debug and for testing or maybe generating graphs and figures, because there's a 12-hour limit on these. So once you can log in, this is a Linux desktop that's on the HPCC system. This home directory is your home directory on HPCC. So, and then we have a number of, all the usual tools are here. You can start MATLAB, Mathematica, RStudio, all this kind of stuff. But what I'm doing right now is setting up our clone, a command line tool. So I need to pull up a terminal. We're going to go to System Tools, Make Terminal. And this is the command line on a graphical interface. And I'll show you why in a minute, because what you want to do is type rclone config, rclone config. And I already have 3 different endpoints set up, but for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to do a new one. And I'm going to call it box train. And you can see there's 38 options of cloud providers here. And I don't know what half of these are. There's Azure, there's Google, there's S3, there's Box. So Box is number 6. So I'm going to type 6. And then from here, you just went defaults, 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 default, no default, yes default. So this is the tip. This is the tricky step with this, is that it actually opens a web browser. So you can log in the Box and say, yes, it's okay, this tool can access my Box account. That's why you need to be on HPCC desktop. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So you say yes, default, and it's going to open up a browser and prompt me for my Box login. And with this, I'm going to do bug at Wharton at UPenn. This is the tricky bit. You use your Wharton email, no password, enter. Then you use your Penn key password. You just do bug and your Penn login. Oh, and I also have 2-factor. So on my phone, I say, yep, that's me. Let's log in. And it says, no, I don't want you to say my password. It says, is it okay to let our clone have access to Box? Yes, grant access to Box. All right, we are authorized. So we can close this and make sure, let's see, again, default, enter. Now we've got a new endpoint here, Box, I called it Box Train. So we can quit this now. And we can close the entire HPCC desktop. Log out. Very tricky setup. It's the best we can do, but then you get access to all of your cloud providers. Oh, what is it? Our clone list. What is it? List remotes. I can see I have all these cloud providers. I can copy and pay and sync and download and upload my files from HPCC or between the different cloud providers, all from the command line or in a script. So say you have it, you finish a job and you want to copy the results to an Amazon bucket, you can do that. Say you want to download the latest file, the data file from Box before you run your job. You can do that in script or you can do it interactively with the command line. Let's say you're transferring files to your collaborator at a different university. You can put it in there. If you have a Dropbox, you can copy it to their Dropbox from here. So this is very, very, very useful. This is like the #1 way we can push files around to anybody and everywhere. So caveat, make sure you know your data sharing agreements. So like, I don't know, if I wanted to do rclone ls, I just did box train, yeah, box train. It'll list all the files in my box. I got a lot of stuff in there. So if I wanted to copy down, I'm just gonna log in the box because I don't want to. Forget the name of my folder and I don't want to dig through that. Let's just say I want to do Uptome. I have no idea why it's called Uptome. If I want to copy the Uptome directory down, I can say the box train Uptome to here. Oh, and I forget how to use this. CP, it's copy. All right, so I copied all the files that were in that directory into this directory. So that's pretty great. I just pulled files from the cloud, and I can also do the reverse. I can save my results to the cloud. So that's a very powerful tool. Is there any questions about that? Like I said, it's a little weird to set up, but once it's there, it's very useful.
So say someone edits that file from a different computer somewhere else and it changes that on Dropbox, will it automatically change in your HPCC, like update?
No, this is, yeah, that's a very good question. No, this is not an active sync. This only syncs when you run the command. It's like rsync, it's like a copy, it's like a move. So if somebody changed it, you would have to copy the file down again. So if I were to change, you would just run this command again. And it would, and I think there's actually, I forget I have some aliases. So back to the bash RC, I made some really handy aliases in my bash RC for syncing files to Dropbox. I called it drop down and drop up. And this will sync the entirety of my Dropbox to a Dropbox directory on our HPCC. I don't recommend you do that. I recommend you make a subdirectory and do that one because you're just going to use the space and wait for all those files to sync for nothing. So it's very, if you can narrow it down to one directory or one file, it's much more efficient. And so here, yeah, here's a version for, I also have a version here for box down and box up. And again, I could probably put like box : Uptome in there, and that would be much more efficient. So if I wanted to sync that Uptome, you know what? I want to keep that in its own directory. I should have done that. So if I rclone sync box train Fill the box. No, actually, in here to this directory. Project, some project, some project. Oh, some. That should sync the directory. Yeah. There was nothing to transfer because it's all synced. If I were to, I don't know, or to mess up that file, I can sync it again. Oh, I forget the option, you.
Well, sync will only sync, the dash U is saying if there was an update up there that's newer than what's down here,
Aha.
get it.
Yeah.
So you can read the options. We're over time, so
Yep. Okay.
there are extensive, great examples on the rclone website, which is also linked from our rclone page, with lots of tricky options, which are nice, especially like for you know, that team environment where various people are doing stuff up there. You want to be careful, right? In fact, the sync command is risky. It's riskier than the copy command. You can do a recursive copy. Just poke around, do some experimenting to make sure that what you're expecting happens. In fact, you can do a dry run as an option, and it will tell you what it would do. That's a really good, especially, and rsync, you can do that as well, a dry run option.
You know, try it into an empty directory first before you do it into your main directory. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, like, that's about all I've got. Like I said, we've got lots of documentation on our website. If you have any questions, or like you need that project directory set up, or you want to know more about how to set up rclone, you can email us and we'll get right back to you. And if you can learn a lot, there's a whole training organization that's kind of open source. It's called Software Carpentry. If you go to software carpentry lessons, there's lessons on using the command line. There's lessons on using Git and revision control, including all the branching stuff I was alluding to. And like things like using Python or programming Python or programming R and making figures. So the software carpentry is a good resource if you want to learn some more. And that's all I've got. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to fire away.
Hugh just answered some of the questions too at the bottom, but yeah, we'll make this video available to everyone as well. But that's the end of the training. Thanks, Gavin.
Sure thing.
Thanks, everyone.